The baby monitor crackled. Sarah Harper froze in the middle of the hallway, her hand tightening around the worn handle of the laundry basket. It tilted slightly, a rolled-up sock slipping over the edge and landing softly on the wooden floor. But she didn't notice. The sound wasn't just static. It was a whisper. Faint. Male. Just under the edge of hearing, like breath through a cracked window. She stared at the monitor in her hand. 3 lights blinked softly. Ava. Jamie. Lily. All 3 of her 9-year-old triplets were asleep. The monitor showed no movement. No crying. Just that low whisper again, like someone speaking from a place too far to be real. Sarah's skin prickled. She set the laundry basket down slowly, careful not to make a sound. Her heart was already pounding. She tiptoed to the kids' room, easing open the door. Ava's arm hung off the side of her bed. Jamie was curled up under his blanket like a turtle. Lily's soft snores rose and fell, peaceful, innocent. Everything looked normal. Still, Sarah's nerves refused to settle. She walked over and touched each child lightly on the head, just to be sure. Just to feel their warmth. Satisfied but unsettled, she turned back toward the hallway. And then she heard it again. Not from the monitor. From downstairs. A whisper. A soft creak. Then. A knock. 3 slow taps. She stopped in her tracks, every muscle locking. Out here, on the edge of the forest, surrounded by nothing but wind and wheat fields, nobody knocked this late. No one ever came this far without calling first. The drive was too long. The road barely marked. And she hadn't told anyone about this place, not even her sister. Another knock. Louder this time. Deliberate. Then silence. Sarah backed away from the stairwell, her breath caught between fear and disbelief. She reached into the drawer of the hallway table and pulled out the kitchen knife she kept hidden there. Her fingers trembled against the smooth metal. It had been years since she needed to hold it like this. A voice called out. Muffled by the thick oak door, but unmistakable. Low. Familiar. Unwelcome. Sarah. I know you're in there. She dropped the monitor. No sound came from her lips, but the scream echoed inside her head. That voice. It couldn't be. 15 years ago, it vanished with the man who had destroyed everything. Back then, she had been barely 19. A small-town girl with a sketchpad, a scholarship, and a heart full of foolish love. She met him during her first semester in Boston. Tall. Quiet. Smiling like he knew secrets the world wasn't allowed to hear. Daniel. She had trusted him. She had loved him. And she had told him, shaking and terrified, that she was pregnant. Triplets. He'd looked at her for a long time. Too long. Said nothing. Then walked out of the coffee shop and vanished from her life like a ghost. No calls, no letters, no goodbye. Just gone. She'd cried every night for weeks. Alone in a tiny rented room with morning sickness and fear as her only company. By the time her parents found out, she was 5 months along and already determined to raise the babies on her own. The rest of the story was a blur of hospital rooms, jobs, second-hand cribs, and long nights. Her art dreams died quietly in a drawer somewhere between bottle warmers and unpaid bills. But her children, her Ava, Jamie, and Lily, they lived. They laughed. They grew. They were her world. And now, the man who left them behind was on her porch. Another knock. I just want to talk, the voice said. Calm. As if 15 years hadn't passed. Please, Sarah. She moved quickly, silently, ducking down to look through the peephole. It was him. Older. Paler. But those eyes. There was no mistaking them. Daniel Green. The man who abandoned her. The father her children never knew. Her hands clenched the knife tighter, the cold of it grounding her. "You shouldn't be here," she said through the door, voice firm. "Go away." Silence. He stepped back from the door, looked toward the edge of the forest behind him. The moon cast him in a strange glow, as if he wasn't really there. Then he said something that chilled her blood. "I know about Ava's breathing problems." She stiffened. And Jamie's heart murmur. And Lily's night terrors. Her mouth opened. Closed. He couldn't have known. Nobody knew except her. Not even her sister. The school nurse knew only about the asthma. "What do you want?" she said. "To explain. To fix what I broke." "It's too late for that." "Sarah," his voice cracked. "They're in danger. That's why I came." She flinched. Danger? Was this some twisted game? "If you don't leave right now," she said, louder this time, "I'll call the police." Daniel raised his hands slowly, like he expected that. His face was unreadable. Not angry. Not pleading. Just tired. "Do it," he said. "But I'll still be here tomorrow. Because I'm not just running from my past anymore, Sarah. I'm running from the people who want our kids dead." She shut the door in his face. Locked it. Bolted it. Stared at it for a full minute before backing away slowly. Her heart pounded so loud she was sure it would wake the kids. She didn't sleep that night. By morning, there was no trace of Daniel. No footprints. No message. Nothing but the quiet hum of life beginning again. The kids woke like any other Saturday, Lily groaning about pancakes, Jamie already holding his comic books, Ava asking for her sketchpad. For a moment, Sarah let herself pretend nothing had changed. Until she saw it. Folded neatly under her windshield wiper. A note. No envelope. Just one page. Her name in his handwriting. She opened it, hands shaking. "They know where you are now. They'll come. Don't trust anyone. Not even the ones who seem familiar." And on the bottom, scrawled hastily. "Meet me tonight. 8 p.m., the old greenhouse." Sarah's breath caught. The old greenhouse had burned down over a decade ago. Or so she thought. Sarah couldn't stop looking at the note. She must have read it 10 times. "They know where you are now. They'll come. Don't trust anyone. Not even the ones who seem familiar. Meet me tonight. 8 p.m. The old greenhouse." The paper trembled in her fingers as she stood next to her car. Morning sun warmed the gravel driveway, but her body was cold. Her eyes darted toward the trees that lined the property. Was someone watching her now? She scanned the horizon. Nothing but wind and quiet. But something had changed. She could feel it. Ava came out onto the porch in her pajama pants and oversized hoodie, holding a piece of toast. "Mom, why are you just standing there?" she asked through a mouthful. Sarah shoved the note into her coat pocket and turned, forcing a smile. "Just checking the tires. Roads are a little rough after the rain." Ava shrugged and walked back inside. Sarah followed slowly, her heart still pounding. The rest of the morning moved like a dream. She cooked breakfast. She asked Jamie about his comic project. She listened to Lily ramble about her dream where a raccoon talked to her in French. But beneath the surface, Sarah was unraveling. She couldn't stop hearing Daniel's voice. "They'll come." Who? Why now? Why after all these years? And why, how, did he know about the kids' health problems? Her fingers twitched every time the phone rang or a shadow passed outside. She didn't let the kids out of her sight for even a second. The farmhouse suddenly felt less like a home and more like a trap, windows like targets, doors too thin, walls too old. By noon, her mind was made up. She had to go. She waited until evening. Dinner was quick, spaghetti and garlic bread, the kids' favorite. She let them pick a movie and pretended to fall asleep on the couch beside them. At 7:15 p.m., she slipped out of the living room and up the stairs. She dressed in dark jeans and a zip-up jacket. Grabbed a flashlight, her old boots, and the same knife she'd held last night. She wrote a note for the babysitter, her neighbor's daughter, Mia, telling her it was an emergency and that she'd be back before midnight. She didn't say where she was going. Didn't say who she was meeting. Didn't say that the man who left her was alive and hiding from something that could apparently kill them all. By 7:45, she was in her car, driving through dirt roads surrounded by towering trees. The old greenhouse sat 5 miles from the edge of town, buried behind what used to be the county's largest nursery. She hadn't been back since it burned down when she was pregnant. The fire had been ruled an accident. Insurance scam, people said. No one rebuilt. But as her headlights cut through the dark, she saw it. Not a ruin. Not ashes. It was there. Standing. Whole. Rebuilt. The greenhouse was made of faded metal frames and dirty glass, patched in places with plastic. It leaned like an old man but held its shape. There was light inside. Dim, flickering. Like candles. Sarah parked the car on the side of the road and killed the engine. Silence swallowed everything. The wind didn't blow. No crickets. No leaves rustling. Just stillness. She stepped out, gripping the flashlight in one hand, the knife hidden in her coat pocket. Every step toward the greenhouse felt heavier. As she got closer, she noticed something strange, footprints in the dirt. Not just Daniel's. Multiple sets. Some fresh. Some old. Someone had been here often. She pushed open the creaky door. The smell of ash and damp soil filled her nose. And then she saw him. Daniel stood in the far corner of the greenhouse, near a rusted table covered in papers, maps, and what looked like old medical files. He looked up as she entered. His face was thinner than she remembered. His hair a little grayer at the temples. But the eyes, those were the same. Still deep. Still unreadable. "Thank you for coming," he said quietly. Sarah didn't respond. She walked forward slowly, eyes on the papers. "What is this place?" "It was never burned down," he said. "The fire was staged. To hide something." She turned sharply. "You said the kids are in danger. Start explaining, or I'm leaving." Daniel hesitated, then reached into his coat. Sarah flinched. He froze, then slowly pulled out a folder and set it on the table. She opened it. Inside were photographs. Her children. Taken from a distance. Some recent. Some from years ago. There were copies of medical records, school notes, even a report card from Ava's 4th grade year. "What the hell is this?" she snapped. "I wasn't spying," he said. "I was protecting them. I've been watching from a distance. Making sure they were safe." Sarah stepped back. "You had no right." "I left because I had to," he said. "Not because I wanted to. I didn't abandon you. I was forced to disappear." She laughed bitterly. "Oh, sure. Forced. That's what cowards say." Daniel looked pained. "It's not what you think. I was working for someone. A research firm. Private contracts. Genetic trials. Illegal ones. They told me it was about curing disease. But it was about control. Children. Experiments. They used people like test tubes. Sarah's mouth went dry. What? You were pregnant when I disappeared. I didn't know at first. When I found out, I tried to come back. But by then, they were tracking me. They erased my identity. Threatened to find you. Find the babies. Sarah stared at him. Her voice was barely a whisper. And now? I escaped. 2 months ago. And I found out they're looking again. Your children were part of the project. That's why they have those health issues. They were part of the control group. You were a target. You still are. She shook her head. You're insane. I have proof, he said, and pulled out another photo. This one showed a baby. In a hospital. Tubes in its nose. I found others, he said. Other women. Other kids. But they're disappearing, Sarah. One by one. And now. They found your location. A crack echoed outside. Sarah whipped around, flashlight shining through the glass panes. Another sound. This time, closer. Daniel rushed to the door and peeked outside. His face turned pale. They're early. Who? He grabbed her hand. We have to go. Now. But it was too late. The greenhouse door slammed shut behind them. Locks clicked from the outside. Shadows moved beyond the glass, tall, deliberate figures. Sarah backed away, heart racing. Daniel pulled a small device from his coat and smashed it against the ground. The explosion wasn't loud, but smoke burst upward, thick and choking. He yanked her toward the back wall of the greenhouse, where a panel of glass had been removed. They crawled out just as a figure burst through the front, masked, holding what looked like a stun gun. Sarah tripped in the dirt but Daniel caught her. Come on. They ran into the woods behind the greenhouse. Branches whipped against her arms. Her breath caught in her throat. Behind them, footsteps. At least 3 people. Maybe more. What do they want? She shouted as they ran. Not want, Daniel said breathlessly. Need. They think the kids are the key to restarting the program. They broke through the trees and reached a road. Daniel pointed. There. A rusted motorcycle leaned behind a fallen fence. He jumped on. Get on. Sarah didn't hesitate. The roar of the engine split the silence as they sped off, the forest disappearing behind them. For the first time since she saw that note, she believed him. And she knew. They were being hunted. Sarah had never ridden a motorcycle before. Certainly not through the backwoods of a town that had long stopped remembering her name. But now, arms tight around Daniel's waist, hair whipping across her face, and fear clawing up her throat like wildfire, she realized. This wasn't her world anymore. This was his. And it was only just beginning to reveal its darkness. The wind howled as they turned sharply off the old trail road, Daniel navigating like he'd memorized every tree root and gravel dip. Sarah dared a glance behind them. No headlights. No shadows. No sign of the people who had trapped them inside the greenhouse. But it didn't feel over. It felt like the start of a hunt. They rode for almost 20 minutes before he pulled into a dense cluster of trees. He killed the engine and let the silence settle. We'll rest here for a moment, he said. They won't be able to track us easily through the woods. Not right away. Sarah dismounted, knees wobbling. Rest here? This is a patch of dirt in the middle of nowhere. Daniel looked at her, calm but focused. You need to catch your breath. And I need to explain what happens next. She folded her arms tightly over her chest. No. No more riddles. I want the full story. All of it. No skipping, no protecting me. You owe me 15 years of truth, Daniel. You owe it to your children. He exhaled slowly, then nodded. And then, under the fading moonlight and the thick hush of pine trees, Daniel began to speak. I was recruited out of college, he said. Bioinformatics, virology, stuff I was good at. I thought it was for a cutting-edge research institute. They called themselves Aegis Division, a think tank for advanced genetic study. Clean logo. Professional labs. They even had ex-military medics on payroll. Sarah stayed silent, letting the name Aegis Division settle in her memory like poison. Daniel continued. They didn't just study disease. They wanted to create adaptability, to push human genes beyond natural limits. The project was codenamed Gemini. Her breath caught. Triplets. Gemini. Twins. Multiple births. She whispered, they used me, didn't they? He nodded once. They identified you in a blood drive at the university. You had a rare genetic marker, something that made you compatible with the embryo manipulation they were secretly testing. You never knew. I didn't either. But they monitored everyone we came in contact with. They found out you were pregnant before I did. Sarah felt dizzy. And you just left me? No, he said quickly. I tried to warn you. I called your dorm, your parents. I even left messages at your friend's apartment. Then they caught me trying to leak information. I was given two choices, disappear or die. I took the first one. Sarah was quiet for a long moment. Then, bitterly. Should have let them kill you. Daniel didn't respond. Instead, he pulled a small USB drive from his jacket. This has everything. Names. Experiments. Records. The test subjects. Including, your kids. She snatched it from his hand. You'll need to plug that into something secure. Not online. They monitor everything. You can't just. A sound. Crack. Not a branch. A boot on twigs. Daniel turned sharply. Run. They took off through the trees again, this time on foot. Sarah's legs ached from the motorcycle ride, her lungs burning. But adrenaline pushed her forward. Behind them, flashlights cut through the trees, white beams flickering like searchlights. Voices followed. 2 men. Maybe 3. One shouted, I see them. Daniel grabbed Sarah's hand and yanked her hard to the right. They ducked into a ditch, crawling under an old log thick with moss and spiders. The footsteps passed above them, fast, careless. Sarah held her breath. The darkness was thick and wet and smelled like rot. She wanted to scream. But she stayed quiet. For the kids. Eventually, the footsteps faded. Daniel led her to a drainage tunnel hidden behind a row of crumbling rocks. It wasn't glamorous, but it was safe for now. They climbed inside, crouched low. Sarah's hand clutched the USB tightly. Where do we go now? She asked. Daniel rubbed his temples. We need someone who can read that data. Someone off-grid. Who? He hesitated. A man named Asher. Used to work internal security for Aegis. He flipped sides when his own daughter was used in a failed trial. He vanished 4 years ago. But I think I know where he might be. Sarah stared at him. You're dragging me deeper into this madness, and you think I'm just going to keep trusting you? He met her eyes. No. I'm hoping you'll trust the truth. Back at the farmhouse, Mia, the babysitter, was cleaning up dinner when she noticed the front gate was wide open. Odd. She walked to the porch, frowning. From the woods, a man in a black coat stood watching the house. She stepped back. He stepped forward. Sarah and Daniel reached an old train yard by dawn, rusted tracks, abandoned shipping containers, the smell of grease and time. Daniel found an old supply cache he'd left here years ago, clean clothes, burner phones, cash. Sarah changed in silence. Her mind raced. What if they were already at the house? What if Jamie woke up coughing again and she wasn't there? What if? Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. Just one message. Your kids are safe. For now. Next time, leave the drive. Sarah stared at the screen, heart plummeting. They were at the house, she whispered. They sent a message. Daniel stepped closer. We have to get to Asher. Now. But the kids. If we don't stop this, they'll never be safe. She wanted to argue. She wanted to scream. But in her gut, she knew. He was right. Hours later, they reached a trailer in the middle of an abandoned lumber yard, 2 counties over. Daniel knocked 3 times, then paused, then knocked twice more. A long silence. Then, a shotgun appeared from the window slit. A gruff voice. You're supposed to be dead. Daniel smiled weakly. A lot of people say that. The door opened slowly. A man in his 60s stood there. Gray hair. Thick glasses. Burned scars on one arm. Asher, Daniel said. We need your help. Asher stared at Sarah. She's the one. Daniel nodded. And those kids of yours, you've got no idea what they really are, do you? Sarah blinked. What are you talking about? Asher opened the door wider. Come inside. I'll show you what Aegis built inside your children. The moment Sarah stepped inside Asher's trailer, she felt like she'd crossed into a different world. Not a home, a bunker. Thick curtains blacked out the windows. Walls were lined with battered servers, humming softly. 2 old CRT monitors glowed with green code. The place smelled like soldering wires and burnt coffee. On one desk sat a collection of vials, tubes, and medical charts. Along the back wall, Sarah caught sight of weapons, some she recognized, some she didn't. Asher closed the door behind them and locked it with 3 heavy bolts. Then he turned around and looked straight at Sarah. Before I tell you anything, I need to know one thing. Sarah met his gaze. What? Would you rather hear what makes your children extraordinary, or what's going to kill them first? Sarah sat in stunned silence. Her mind felt like it was sliding off the surface of this new reality, unable to grasp how deep it really went. Daniel stepped beside her. Tell her the truth, Asher. All of it. The older man sighed, then walked over to a drawer. He pulled out a manila folder and set it on the table. Inside were genetic charts, annotations, and 3 separate patient profiles. Names redacted. But Sarah could tell by the details, they were her children. Ava. Lily. Jamie. I worked internal security for Aegis for 10 years, Asher said, pacing. But I had a science background. They let me sit in on the deeper layers of the Gemini project. It was never just about enhancing human adaptability. It was about transgenic memory, passing learned behavior genetically. Sarah frowned. What does that mean? It means your kids can inherit more than eye color or allergies, Daniel said softly. They inherited skills. Reflexes. Even psychological imprints. Asher nodded. They weren't supposed to. You were in the control group. Natural pregnancy, no post-conception enhancement. But something happened. Sarah's eyes widened. They're not normal. Asher pointed to a chart. Your daughter Ava has unusual sensory response levels. Reaction time faster than Olympic athletes. She doesn't even realize it, it's subtle. But it's real. Sarah blinked. She aces every test. Has perfect pitch. Solves puzzles like they're nothing. Daniel added, Jamie's lung issues are a side effect of the modified chromosome. He has something called resilient stacking. He bounces back from stress in half the time a normal child would. But it taxes his nervous system. Asher flipped to the last page. And Lily, she's the anomaly. Emotional retention is off the charts. Empathic imprinting. She can intuit how people feel without them saying a word. Maybe even influence them. Sarah felt like the air had left her lungs. You're telling me, they were born with abilities? Daniel nodded. Accidental. But real. And that's why Aegis wants them back. Asher leaned in closer. They don't want to study your kids anymore, Sarah. They want to extract the traits. Replicate them. Mass-produce them. If they get their hands on them again, they won't survive the procedures. None of them do. Sarah's voice cracked. Why now? Why come after us 15 years later? Because the original project failed, Asher said. Most subjects died young or mutated out of control. Your kids are the only long-term survivors. Daniel opened his backpack and pulled out the USB drive Sarah had taken from him earlier. Can you read this? Asher plugged it into one of the ancient monitors. Lines of code and files spilled across the screen. I can try. He typed fast. Sarah couldn't follow any of it. But after a few minutes, he froze. Son of a... What? Daniel stepped forward. Asher clicked on a file labeled, Phase 3, Omega Protocol. What is this? Sarah asked, heart pounding. Asher didn't answer. He played a video clip. A lab. Sterile white. Scientists in masks surrounding what looked like a child strapped to a medical table. The child was unconscious, twitching. A voiceover played. Subject 017 is stable. Beginning trait isolation. Injecting recombinant CRISPR strands. If this works, we'll begin field replication in under 60 days. Then the video glitched and cut out. Asher looked away. They moved past observation. They're weaponizing it. The trailer fell into silence. Only the hum of machines and the distant howl of wind. Then Sarah stood. We have to get the kids. Now. Daniel hesitated. They'll be watching the house. Probably bugged it, too. Asher nodded. You'll need a diversion. I have something. He rummaged through a box and pulled out a small black disc. EMP pulse. Short range. Fries anything digital within a 30-foot radius. Use it on their surveillance gear. But you'll only get one shot. Sarah reached out and took it. I'm going. Daniel looked at her. Then I'm coming with you. Back at the farmhouse, the situation had shifted from subtle surveillance to something much more dangerous. Mia, the babysitter, was tied to a chair in the pantry. Her phone was smashed. Her eyes were wide and terrified. Two men in dark coats moved silently through the house. One stood in Jamie's room, watching the boy sleep. Another was in the kitchen, removing a bugging device from the toaster and replacing it with a new one. Ava, Lily, and Jamie had been given cough syrup mixed with a sedative. They were unconscious. They'll move the kids tonight, one of the men said into an earpiece. Mothers become unpredictable. Secure the extraction van. Sarah and Daniel approached the farmhouse just after sunset. Asher stayed behind, monitoring from his equipment via satellite relay. Sarah gripped the EMP device tightly in her pocket. Go around the back, she whispered. I'll distract them from the front. Daniel nodded, disappearing into the trees like smoke. Sarah walked straight up the driveway. Her hands were shaking, but her eyes burned with fury. She reached the porch and knocked once. A man opened the door. Big. Expressionless. Earpiece in his ear. "Sarah Whitman," he said. "You weren't expected." "I tend to surprise people," she replied. Then she slammed the EMP against the wall just beside the door. It let out a high-pitched whine, then pop. Lights in the house flickered, then went out. Electronics fried. The man lunged, but Sarah ducked. From behind, Daniel tackled him, slamming him into the banister. Another guard rushed in, but Sarah grabbed a kitchen chair and swung with everything she had. The man went down. Daniel rushed upstairs. Sarah ran to the pantry and untied Mia, whose eyes were wide with confusion. "Get out of here," Sarah said. "Run to the neighbors. Call the sheriff. Tell them men are in my house." Mia nodded and fled. Sarah found the kids in Jamie's room. 3 of them, curled up, breathing slowly. She checked their pulses. "They're drugged," she told Daniel. He knelt beside them and pulled out a syringe. "This is a counteragent. Fast metabolism. They'll wake up in 5 minutes." He injected each child carefully. Sarah held their hands, whispering their names over and over. "Ava. Lily. Jamie, sweetheart, it's Mom. I'm here. You're safe now." 10 minutes later, the children were awake, but groggy. Daniel helped carry them to the car. Sarah buckled them in, kissed each forehead, and started the engine. Then she turned to Daniel. "What now?" He looked back at the farmhouse. "There'll be more coming. We can't stay here." "We run again?" she asked, pain in her voice. Daniel didn't answer. Instead, he took her hand. "Next time, we fight." The road stretched out ahead of them like a question with no answer. Sarah gripped the steering wheel tighter than she needed to. In the rearview mirror, she could see Ava leaning against the window, eyes half closed. Lily curled up between her and Jamie, who was breathing easier now, thanks to the antidote. Daniel sat beside Sarah, scanning the GPS Asher had programmed into a burner phone. "Keep heading north," he said. "Off the grid, just long enough to get to the drop point." Sarah's voice was low and tight. "And what exactly is at the drop point?" Daniel turned to her. "A safe house. One of Asher's. It has a secure lab. We need to run full diagnostics on the kids, find out how far Aegis got. What traits they're still expressing. What triggers could still be dormant." Sarah's jaw tightened. "They're not experiments. They're children. My children." Daniel's reply was quiet. "They're both." Silence stretched between them. And somewhere deep inside, Sarah knew he wasn't wrong. The safe house was hidden behind an abandoned orchard off an old farm road near the Washington border. It looked like a decaying barn on the outside, but inside, it was reinforced concrete, solar-powered, self-sustaining. Asher was already there, waiting for them. He'd shaved, but it didn't help. His eyes were darker than ever. And when he looked at the children, it wasn't with sympathy. It was with study. "Put them in separate rooms," he said, already booting up machines. "Low lights. Clean air. No tech. We don't want to trigger another episode." "Episode?" Sarah echoed. Daniel explained as gently as he could. The Gemini children weren't just given enhancements. Some were designed to activate under pressure. Fear. Isolation. Or even certain frequencies. "You said Lily used to hum in her sleep?" Sarah nodded slowly. "Could be a pattern. A signal she picked up. Something that's been trying to reach them, or control them. Over the next few hours, they drew blood samples, ran silent observation tests, scanned for known genetic modifications, and monitored brainwave activity. The results were worse than Sarah expected. And far worse than Daniel had feared. Ava's brain showed complex multi-layered pattern recognition skills. Similar to Savant's but laced with emotional suppression. Aegis had hard-coded her instincts to suppress grief and confusion in exchange for rapid calculation and response. Lily's neural synapses lit up like fireworks whenever someone in the room felt anything strongly. Empathy, anger, sadness, it fed her. Shaped her. But Jamie was the most worrying. His DNA showed traces of a dormant retrovirus. Not naturally occurring. Lab-designed. Daniel stared at the sequence. They weren't just studying resilience. They were testing integration. Asher swore. They embedded a trigger. A virus that activates during puberty, probably when hormone levels spike. If it wakes up, he could be dead in a week. Or worse, something else entirely. Sarah sat on the floor, her head in her hands. These are children. Yes, Asher said grimly. And they're Aegis' most valuable prototypes. Night fell like a curtain of silence over the orchard. The kids were asleep, monitored, safe, at least for now. Sarah sat outside the safe house, wrapped in a worn blanket, staring at the stars. The same stars she'd looked at when she was 16, dreaming of a future. She'd never imagined this. Daniel stepped out beside her, holding 2 cups of instant coffee. She took one without looking at him. I used to think the worst thing you'd done was leave, she said quietly. Now I think the worst was believing you had no choice. Daniel didn't reply right away. I didn't just run, Sarah. I fought. I leaked what I could. Tried to get to you. I got people hurt. Killed. I almost died in a facility fire 2 years ago trying to free a girl that looked like Lily. He looked up at the sky, the stars reflecting in his tired eyes. She didn't make it. Sarah didn't say anything. But her hand, resting on the porch rail, drifted closer to his. Inside, Ava stirred. She sat up, blinking. Something was calling her. Not a voice. Not a sound. A pattern. She slid quietly out of bed, walking barefoot down the hall to the server room. Her fingers hovered over the hard drives like she knew which one to touch. In her mind, something clicked. An equation. A rhythm. Like music. Like code. Her eyes rolled back, and she spoke. Not English. Not any human language. But something synthetic. Asher's monitors lit up. Lines of code streamed across the screen, faster than any of them could read. Daniel rushed in. Ava. She collapsed. They carried her to the lab table. Sarah cradled her head, panic rising in her chest. She's seizing. No, Asher said. She's downloading. What? She's accessed the buried archive. The last set of instructions left inside her mind. The final stage of Project Gemini. On the monitor, a new file appeared. Blood Code, Activation Protocol. Asher's face drained of color. Oh God. They were planning to use them as keys. Daniel leaned in. Keys to what? Asher typed rapidly, decrypted the file, scanned its contents. And then he stopped. They didn't just want to replicate traits. They wanted to build a network, a biological encryption system that no AI or machine could ever crack unless the source code was alive. Sarah stared at the screen. You mean, they wanted to use the kids as living passwords? Yes, Asher whispered. To protect the most dangerous biological weapons ever developed. The data revealed a chilling truth: if all 3 children were together in one place, their blood could be used to unlock Aegis's hidden vaults containing everything from prototype viruses to mind-altering neurochemicals. Without them, the data was useless. With them, it was world-ending. Daniel's jaw clenched. They don't want the kids. They want access. The kids are just the keys. Sarah looked at him, eyes blazing. Then we break the lock. The next 48 hours were a blur of preparation. Asher created fake blood samples, scrambling the protein signatures to look like the real blood code. They encrypted the drive Ava had unlocked and set up a decoy transmission to lure Aegis to an old broadcast station in the mountains. The plan was simple: lure the collectors, stall them with the fake data, and burn the system down once and for all. But nothing ever goes as planned. On the 3rd night, Lily woke up crying. Sarah rushed in. "What is it?" "They're coming," she whispered. "They found us. I felt it." She pointed at the window. A red laser dot flickered across the far wall. Then, glass shattered. Smoke bombs. Gunshots. Yelling. Daniel shoved Sarah and the kids into the reinforced basement. "Don't come out unless I say," he shouted. Then he and Asher ran toward the servers. In the chaos, Sarah pulled Jamie and Lily into a hidden bunker under the lab. Ava, still weak, clung to her. Outside, gunfire echoed through the orchard. But Daniel was ready. He'd rerouted the fake data to transmit on a loop, baiting the attackers to plug into the false port. When they did, he detonated the system. The explosion rocked the ground, knocking out power across the compound. Silence. Then footsteps. Sarah held her breath. A single figure stepped into the light of the basement stairs. He wore a gray coat, clean-shaven, with bright blue eyes and a cruel smile. "Sarah Whitman," he said calmly. "We've never met. But I've known your children since before they were born." She raised a crowbar, hands shaking. He didn't flinch. "My name is Dr. Caleb Voss, Director of Aegis Division. And I've come to make a deal." The basement was cloaked in shadow, broken only by the weak glow of emergency lights flickering overhead. Sarah gripped the crowbar tighter, every muscle tense and ready to strike. Dr. Caleb Voss stepped closer, unflinching, his bright blue eyes cold and calculating. "You don't understand," he said calmly. "I'm not here to hurt your children. I'm here to save them." Sarah's voice shook. "Save them? After everything you've done?" He smiled thinly. "Aegis created them, yes. But the modifications inside your kids, the blood code, is a ticking time bomb. If untreated, Jamie's dormant virus will activate. It will kill him, and then spread." She glanced at Jamie, whose breathing was shallow, his face pale even in the dim light. "So you want to cure him," Sarah said. "Not just cure. Control." Caleb lifted a small vial filled with a clear liquid. "This is the Omega Serum. It stabilizes the virus, suppresses the triggers. But it needs to be administered correctly and consistently. I'm offering you a deal." Sarah narrowed her eyes. "Which is?" "Give me access to the kids' genetic data. Full cooperation. And I will provide the serum, and protection." "And if we refuse?" Caleb's smile vanished. "Then the virus activates. And Aegis will take them by force. The world won't be safe. And neither will they." Daniel stepped forward, voice low and furious. "We've already seen what Aegis is capable of. You don't get to bargain with children's lives." Caleb raised a hand. "Then the choice is yours." Sarah looked at her children. Ava's eyes fluttered open. Lily's fingers tightened around hers. Jamie coughed weakly. Her heart ached. She thought of the 15 years alone, how she'd protected them, hidden them, lied to keep them safe. And now, the nightmare was catching up. The next day, tension soared. Caleb stayed close, watching every move, while Sarah and Daniel tried to care for the kids, keep them calm, and figure out their next step. Asher worked feverishly in the lab, trying to reverse engineer the Omega serum and find a way to free the children without handing them back to Aegis. But Caleb's presence was like poison in the air. One night, as Sarah sat by Jamie's bedside, Ava quietly came to her. "Mom," she whispered, "I can feel something in me. Like a shadow. It's waking up." Sarah swallowed hard. "We'll fix it, baby. I promise." Outside, the safehouse cameras showed a growing force. Aegis operatives were converging from all sides. Caleb made a call. "Prepare extraction. Bring the children." But Asher hacked into the system and sent a scrambled message through Caleb's comm. "Delay them. We're not done yet." The storm hit just before dawn. Rain pounded the roof, lightning flashing through the trees. Sarah gathered the kids in the main room. "We have to make a choice," she said, voice steady despite the fear gnawing at her. Daniel nodded. "Stay here, or go with Caleb." Lily's eyes were wide. "I don't want to go." Ava took her hand. "Neither do I." Jamie coughed again. Sarah looked at each of them. "We're a family. We fight together." Suddenly, the basement door burst open. Caleb strode in, flanked by armed guards. "Time's up," he said. But before anyone could react, the safehouse lights went out. Asher's voice crackled through the speakers. "Now." From hidden compartments, Sarah and Daniel grabbed weapons, non-lethal but enough to incapacitate. Chaos erupted. Shots fired, alarms blared, kids screamed. In the frenzy, Sarah fought Caleb face to face. "You don't care about the kids," she shouted. "You just want control." Caleb smirked. "They're the future." Sarah swung the crowbar. He caught it and twisted, knocking her to the floor. But Daniel was there. He tackled Caleb, and they crashed into a stack of crates. The guards were disoriented. Asher used the opportunity to upload a virus into the Aegis system. The virus spread fast, crippling Aegis's surveillance and communication. Caleb cursed, struggling with Daniel. Sarah scrambled to the server room. "We have to destroy the blood code," she said. Asher nodded. "It's our only way to free them." Together, they initiated a purge. The monitors blinked. Files deleted. Data erased. Meanwhile, Lily clung to Ava and Jamie. "I'm scared," she whispered. "We'll be okay," Ava said. Jamie coughed violently. Sarah appeared. "It's going to be okay." But the door slammed open. More guards poured in. Ava stepped forward. "I'm not afraid." Her eyes glowed faintly blue. She whispered words none of them understood. The guards froze. Lily's empathic power flared, overwhelming the intruders' minds with confusion and fear. Jamie coughed again, but then a new strength surged through him. His breathing steadied. Caleb watched in disbelief. "They're evolving beyond us." Sarah seized the moment. "Run." The family bolted through a hidden passage Asher had prepared. They burst into the stormy night, rain soaking them to the bone. They ran through the orchard, branches slashing at their faces. Behind them, the safe house exploded. Flames lit up the sky. Sarah held her children close. "We're free." But freedom came at a price. The virus inside Jamie was only suppressed, not gone. Aegis would never stop hunting them. And the blood code was still inside their blood. Their lives, and the fate of the world, hung by a thread.